To the Art Lewis Show here on WSGW. Later on, after the 10 o'clock news, we will have open phones for the 10 o'clock hour. At 11 o'clock, we're going to learn about Menard's Toy Drive. But for this hour, we're going to talk energy, the environment, and the like with our special guest returning for another visit. And he is Peter Sinclair. Good morning to you.
Hey, Art. Great to be here.
Great to have you. I want to start with something that's been in the news because there's a lawsuit's been filed. That's the reactivation of the Palisades nuclear plant. Have you been following that at all?
I have.
What do you think about it?
Well, it's gotten bipartisan support from the legislature. The legislature appropriated something like $300 million to do it. The governor is behind it.
We should point out, too, it's not one of the two major power companies in the state. It's another company, right?
It is. Well, yeah, it's another company called Holtec that is doing the rehabilitation. This is the plant closed in 2021
Something
or
like
22. That, yeah. There were some technical problems that the owner at that time just didn't want to spend the money on. They couldn't find a buyer. So it was sort of in limbo for a year or so, and then this idea of rehabilitating it, think of it like rebuilding an engine, I guess,
sure.
Which has never been done before with a nuclear plant. So this Holtec is a company that's got a lot of technical expertise in various areas related to nuclear, but they have not done this before. There is a plan also to build two so-called small modular nuclear reactors eventually.
That's
on
the new style.
On the same site. It would be the so-called new technology. But my understanding is I saw a presentation by one of the principal executives a few months ago, and he said they expected that would be in operation any time now, end of this year. And if it does so, then I wish him luck. And
correct me if I'm wrong, but the last time you were here, we talked for a little bit about these new modular reactors.
You bet.
And you didn't seem to have an objection to those. Of course, your family history with Midland Nuclear is a whole nother story.
Sure.
And Palisades is an old-style plant.
Yeah.
What do you think of rehabbing it and firing it up again?
Well, like I say, we're downwind, so I wish them all the luck in the world. It's kind of an unstoppable political machine that wanted to get it restarted. And if we assume that everything works perfectly according to plan, then that's clean, low-carbon energy, okay?
Yeah.
And it's just nuclear has always been a great idea on paper, It's been the execution that's been tough.
That was the problem in Midland many years ago.
Sure. And Palisades started up in the 70s, had about 10 very rough years where it was not performing well, and then consumers in part had to be reorganized. Consumers Energy in part related to that plant and the problems at the Midland plant, and eventually it was sold to a third-party operator, and from best as I know, operated pretty well for the last 20, 25 years or so.
Right.
Yeah.
I just, in this day and age, I came through, I was out in California, and I went by train both ways. I love to ride rails.
Oh, great.
When I flew up to Portland, Oregon, and then took the northern route back. And coming through, I want to say it was Montana. We must have passed a field of hundreds, not tens, but hundreds of windmills.
Mm-hmm.
I understood them. They were all turning.
Mm-hmm.
but that was the ugliest thing I had ever seen, destroying what was a beautiful landscape.
Mm-hmm.
And I just, I told myself at that time, I said, gee, now, if they had one little nuclear plant in the middle of that, you wouldn't have any of that stuff out there, because it could produce as much power. And a fan is a bad word, but I've been supportive of nuclear energy.
Sure.
And I'd like to see some of these modular plants built, more of them.
Well, it's the problem with nuclear has always been the economic problem.
Two problems: economic problem, and what do you do with the waste?
Well, okay, and right now we've got a whole bunch of waste sitting on the beach at Palisades, and around the Great Lakes there's something like 50 or 60,000 tons of that nuclear waste sitting on the beach because we don't have a long-term solution. I want to believe that the casks that are sitting in will be sufficient for thousands and thousands of years, but I don't think that's the ideal solution. But the problem with the concern with the new generation of nuclear plants is that the idea was so-called small modular, was that you could build these things like on an assembly line,
and you could also in use stack them. You could have more than one modular.
You could stack them as units. Yeah, right. And so if you build them on an assembly line, then supposedly you would get economy of scale. The problem is it's like you're building let's say you came up with a brand new company and you said, I've got this brand new product. It's called a Boeing 747.
Yeah.
Okay. But you have to start from ground zero with like global supply chains, right, and all the parts, and where are the engineers and where's your experience. I mean, when Boeing built a 747, they had 100 years of aircraft building experience. Now you're talking about we're going to build something and we're going to build it on an assembly line that's approximately the same size and, let's argue, complexity as a 747.
Yeah.
And you're kind of starting from your bootstraps,
And if that were the case, I would not want to use Boeing as an example because in the recent years, look what's happened with the assembly lines and the mistakes that are allowed. And
let that aside,
cut corners.
Sure.
So you have to have, particularly in something like a nuclear module, you'll have to have some pretty severe oversight to make sure that things are done the right way.
Well, and this is the problem, is that
I knew you were going to go there.
The current administration wants to cut that loose from the Nuclear Regulatory Commission and even maybe devolve it down to the state level, which really kind of makes me nervous because I don't know what department we have at the state level that has that kind of expertise.
We have the kind of state level governance that says Palisades can reopen.
Well, yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah.
Now I'm not, and I have to be clear, I'm not against Palisades reopening, but I do want to make sure that the oversight is good and that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted.
Right. The other issue is that even the most aggressive like operators of nuclear plants, and I'm thinking of like Duke Energy is one of the biggest in the country, and we know from their required government filings that their first small modular nuclear plant would come online sometime in 2037. Okay.
That's if they start now.
That's if they get started now. And
Wow.
It's also, then they make clear, it's also if we maintain all of the tax credits and maybe even get some more
incentives
in there from the feds and from the taxpayers. They're really kind of counting on that. Okay. So meanwhile, the demand for electricity is going up now.
And now you add AI data centers.
You got data centers. You've got just we're building more manufacturing in this country, And, so after a period of like not a whole lot of growth, we got new demand, and it's on us right now.
I've thought about this AI situation in the data centers for a while, and I always thought the smart tactic would be to require them to build their own energy source on site, because you put a lot of these data centers online and the power companies are going to have a terrible time supplying everything that's needed, particularly with the reduction of coal-fired plants, and I don't think it's realistic to think that windmills and solar are going to replace all of that.
Well, hold that thought. I mean,
okay. Let me take a break,
sure.
too. I'll hold that thought, and you hold yours.
Thought.
We'll be
Very
back to see what we were thinking here on the Art Lewis Show. Let me take a moment to talk about Quick Lane Freeland on the property of McDonald Ford. Quick Lane Freeland, where you go for all your automotive service, and something else you ought to be doing there, and that's buying tires, because they sell all their tires at just $5 over cost. And one of the kinds of tires they sell are winter tires, because there is a difference. They are not made the same way as your everyday driving tire. And if you want to learn about it, take a few seconds to listen to John from Quick Lane Freeland.
Hello, Art. Yes, winter tires are made with a pliable rubber compound that includes silica to stay flexible and maintain grip in freezing temperatures. Unlike harder all-season tires, which stiffen and lose traction in the cold, this flexible compound allows the tire to better conform to the road surface, providing superior grip and traction on snow and ice to keep you safe.
Thanks, John. Stop in today, Quick Lane Freeland, M47 on the McDonald Ford property, and have them check your tires and learn about winter tires. Also have them check your cooling system for the upcoming winter weather. And while you're there, you might as well look at the new lineup of Ford automobiles from McDonald Ford, as well as their huge selection of pre-owned vehicles in a lot of different price ranges to help anyone who is looking. McDonald Ford and Quick Lane Freeland, two names standing ready to help you with all your automotive needs. All right, we're back with you. We're talking to Peter Sinclair, who has had a career in environmental issues and is well-rounded and well-knowledgeable about them. And the other thing I like is that, I've known Peter a while. I would describe you as moderate in these issues as opposed to extreme.
Well, thank you.
I mean, really, when you think about it.
My hair's on fire about a few things.
Well, aren't we all? But that's for sure. All right, so we were talking about, like these data centers coming in and big power draws. And
right. So the deal is the demand for energy is going up, electricity. And we've only got a few choices for how we can meet that demand. We've already talked about nuclear. We're starting up Palisades, which is an old nuclear plant being revamped. But there's only a few opportunities around the country, and there's only that one in Michigan, and then a few others around the country where you can do that if it works. The other nuclear is, as we discussed, 8, 10, 12 years out. So that's not going to help us right away, no matter what. Next opportunity would be gas, like gas turbines, like you have over in Midland,
11
right?
Units.
And the problem there is that there has been such a demand surge for those turbines that they are now booked at least 5 years out. You can't get one much before 2030 or maybe even
build one,
later.
Yeah,
just it's a supply chain thing.
Right.
And so that leaves us, what that leaves in the cupboard is solar and wind and batteries. And fortunately, those are things that you can build Once you get a permit, you can build those within about 12 to 18 months.
So let me ask this question. I probably know the answer, but I'm going to ask it anyway. We have probably one of the largest coal reserves in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Toward the end of coal-fired plants, there were so many emissions projects that scrubbed the product. And, we heard clean coal and all those terms. In your world, is there no use for coal providing energy?
Well, I'll tell you a couple of stories about that. One is that the Department of Interior, which controls our coal reserves, recently canceled a sale of potentially 160 million tons or something of coal out in Montana. They canceled the sale because the best offer that they got was a penny a ton. And that tells you something about how enthusiastic utilities are about coal.
Well, but is there lack of enthusiasm because they don't want to burn coal, or is there lack of enthusiasm because they've been so regulated out of it that they can't deal with it?
There are so many problems and headaches that come with burning coal, not the least of which is that you burn it and then you're left with this coal ash, which is, if you were seeking to design a perfect toxic mess, it pretty well comes close, and they have literal mountains of it wherever there is a coal plant. It's a problem forever that either utilities or more likely us taxpayers are going to have to deal with. Otherwise, it ends up in rivers, it ends up in lakes. And,
how is that different
else
from nuclear waste?
Just the sheer volume is
just
one.
Need bigger caskets.
Yeah. I mean, it's just mountains and mountains and mountains, hundreds and hundreds of millions of tons every few months. The other story is that the current administration wants to keep coal burning. I would argue because they had significant donors who are big coal industry.
Sure.
So they mandated that a large coal plant here in Michigan down by Holland, the J.H. Campbell plant, which was scheduled to be shut down on May 31st.
Is that consumers?
Consumers, correct.
Because they were going to shut them all down.
Well, eventually. And so the consumers had planned for this. They purchased a gas-fired power plant about the same magnitude, and they have lots of solar and wind and battery that they're going to be implementing. So they said, we don't need this plant anymore. The Public Service Commission, which regulates the plant, said, we don't need this plant anymore. We're covered. The Mid-Continent System Operator, which runs the grid for this part of the Midwest, said, we don't need this plant. We're covered. But the government said, no, you're going to run this plant. And so it's costing ratepayers an extra $615,000 a day to keep this plant running. They're looking for a customer for this electricity. And it's, we talk about we don't want to pick, we're not in the business of picking winners. Well, this is picking a loser, and mandating it on the backs of the ratepayers. Consumers Energy had, of course, they had canceled all their coal contracts. They had canceled all of the rail cars that they, had engaged to bring the coal in. They had people that were going to move to other sites or retire, so they had to call all the people back. They had to scurry around and get those coal contracts. That can't be cheap because the government is basically, the administration is doing this in 90-day increments. So they said on May 31st you have to keep it open for another 90 days, and then in August they said another 90 days. Well, that's not the way you run a business, or certainly a utility.
The only part of the conversation that I take some issue with has to do with the future. And by that I mean right now, anyway, as you said, they don't have a customer for that electricity. But with all of the data centers coming online, with the movement toward eventually it's going to be, whether we like it or not, we're going to have at least half the cars on the road are going to be electric. We have to have power. I can see the demand going up, but is that a reason to keep that plant open? I mean, that's,
well, at
the other side of
what
it.
cost? The utility, from the utility's perspective, there are cheaper ways for them to generate that power, and that are less of a headache for the ratepayers and the taxpayers going forward. And so that's kind of their attitude. Why would I want to spend the extra money just to use this obsolete technology? Yeah, it generates energy, but we have, they would argue, better ways.
Just how long is it going to take to get all those better ways online? Hold that thought.
Okay.
We'll come back talking more with Peter Sinclair about energy and the environment and all that ahead here on the Art Lewis Show.
It's natural to have questions.
It was we were going to think about because we got talking about something else.
Well, we got to build a lot of electrical capacity
the time
quickly.
it takes, yeah.
And the advantage of the problem is we're in a little bit of a crunch right now. We've got to bring some capacity online quickly, and as we discussed before, the nuclear isn't going to save us, not for at least 7 to 10 years. The gas is out of reach because of supply chain issues. We have a near-term crunch coming, and the only thing that you can get online in 12 to 18 months or so is solar, wind, and batteries. And so I'm just sounding the alarm everywhere I go, because people who are high up, CEOs in the utility industry, are telling us if we don't bring these things online, the price of electricity is going to go to the moon, and we will have blackouts and brownouts potentially. And
think of California. So let me ask this then. In retrospect, hindsight is always 20/20.
Sure.
Did we accelerate the closing of the coal plants too quickly? Should we have phased them off on a longer period of time to allow us to build new generation to replace what we're taking offline as we do it, rather than take them all off online and then figure out how we're going to replace all this energy?
Well, but utilities do that. I mean, they think on 20 and 30-year time.
Then why are we in such a crunch?
Well, we're in a crunch because this power demand has ramped up faster than somebody might have thought maybe 5 or 10 years ago, and we've also had some problems getting the crunch in the gas turbine market was probably not foreseen a few years ago. And we've had problems getting the solar and wind sited as quickly as we would like to, and that's in part reason for the siting reform that we've seen at the state level here in Michigan to speed that up.
The courts and the notion that the state's going to come in and tell the locals what they can do and can't do in terms of zoning. And we'll have to wait to see what the courts have to say about that.
Well, yeah, I think it's worth remembering that local communities don't have any say if someone wants to drill an oil well or do fracking or build a pipeline. It's all set up in favor of the fossil fuel industry, and nobody was too concerned about so-called local control for the last 100 years or so, except now they are, and I would argue that's because the fossil fuel interests have made an issue of it
to some degree,
in regard to clean energy in particular. They don't want you to think too much about what they're doing. But I remember talking to a township supervisor, longtime supervisor up in Otsego County, and she told me, we're like Swiss cheese up here from all the drilling and fracking and pipelines and feeder lines and everything else. Mm-hmm. And their experience that they have is they get a knock on the door. Man would say, hey, you own that 10 acres over there. We're going to be drilling in the southwest corner, just so you know. Here's $500. Have a good day, and that's the extent of the local control that they had. And that is pretty much the case throughout the state. And, our legislators seem fine with it.
I got to ask about that before I have to come to the break here. But as the landowner, if I own that parcel that they say they're going to drill on, they can't drill on it without my permission. I own it.
No. If you do not own the mineral rights, then they can drill on it.
How do I not own the mineral rights if I own the land and everything around it?
I don't know. I own a house. Do I have the mineral rights underneath? I don't even know. Most people don't even think about that. It's just
got
any
oil under your house?
I don't know.
You can make a lot of money. Maybe,
yeah, right.
I understand though, but it just. There are so many inconsistencies in the way we do things.
Of course.
And that's always been troubling. Quick break, come back, one more segment with Peter Sinclair.
It's a joy to watch your kids grow.
Ed Evans, CEO of Consumer Cellular. Ever wonder why the big wireless companies want you on an unlimited plan? It's because they need you to help cover the cost of the 20-somethings who are using a lot of data every month. Fact is, according to the latest research studies, most people 50 and up, like me, only use 12 gigs or less each month. Don't get bamboozled by big wireless. At Consumer Cellular, pick what suits your needs. Whether it's 1 gig, 5, 10, or unlimited, the point is, pay for exactly what you need and nothing more. We use the same towers as the big guys, but since we don't own and maintain them, we can pass the savings on to you. Our plans start at just $20 a month, and you'll get the best customer service in the business. I want to invite you to join the millions of people who choose something better than big wireless, because if you're not using all that data, you're probably getting used.
Call 1-888-FREEDOM or visit consumercellular.com/facts. Plans include $5 credit for auto pay and e-billing. See site for additional facts.
Michigan.
Wind, sighting. Not an easy task, is it? It's one of those NIMBY things, not in my backyard.
There's a lot of that out there, and a lot of people don't understand. They'll say, well, why don't we build nuclear plants? It's not as simple as going to the nuclear plant store and buying a nuclear plant. As we've discussed, that's 10 years out. And we have really got to move forward with this for a variety of reasons, and one of them, I would argue, is that our farmers are in crisis. I think that anybody that's followed the news over the last few months would have to agree it's never been tougher to be a farmer. And a lot of farmers that I know around the state are trying to diversify their income with some solar or some wind or something like that would give them, say, 20 or 30 years of drought-proof, recession-proof, trade war-proof income that, you can take that to a banker and
every month
it makes
you get
sense.
a check.
Yeah, right. So, but they're meeting with all kinds of harassment and even death threats, some of them, from people oftentimes who have moved into the area. Farmer's been there, his family's been there 150 years. Somebody moves in and thinks that view of the cornfield is something that they own, and that's not what the Michigan Zoning and Enabling Act says. If a farmer can have if there's a legal use of land, that farmer ought to be able to make use of that.
Well, and how long does it take to build a solar plant? And before we get to that, how long does it take to order and actually receive solar panels? Because you got China eating them up like crazy. We're fortunate here. We have Hemlock Semiconductor and now the Corning plant coming in and people like that. But, how long does it, if you want to build a solar field, how long does it take you to find the thousands of panels it needs to put up a field?
Well, a lot of the developers have, already purchased the panels in advance that they need. And a lot of people don't realize that we're now producing, or have the capacity to produce, pretty much all the panels we need right here in the United States. The CHIPS and Science Act of the previous